In this video, we are going to talk about the lie men were told about strength and what it's actually costing you. My name is Christopher. I'm a licensed therapist who works specifically with men, and let's dive right in. I want to begin by opening up with a story. And it just so happens that the story is actually one from my own past. I was about 10 years old and I had just failed the presidential fitness test. If you grew up anywhere between the 60s and the early 2000s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This was the glorious government mandated public ritual of humiliation, where every kid in America was required to demonstrate their physical superiority. Pull-ups, sit-ups, the shuttle run, and yes, the flexibility test as well. In front of God, their classmates, and a gym teacher with a clipboard. There's nothing like being 10 years old and officially having your athletic shortcomings documented for the president of the United States. So for this particular test, I didn't fail all of it. It was just one particular station. It was the flexibility test. I couldn't reach far enough past my toes on the sit and reach box. You definitely don't forget the day that your hamstrings let you down in front of everyone. The teacher called my score out loud in front of everyone. All the other kids in my class were watching, all of the other boys and girls. And in that 10-year-old chest, something inside of me cracked open. I didn't let anyone see it. I walked off the mat like it was nothing, full of 10-year-old swagger. Completely unconvincing. And then I made a beeline for the one place in the gymnasium where I could disappear. The ball storage room, that musty closet full of rubber dodgeballs, basketballs, and mesh bags of equipment. I slipped inside, shut the door behind me, and I let the tears come. I don't know how long I was in there before the door opened. I heard a voice. "Are you crying?" My friend stood in the doorway. It wasn't cruel exactly. He was just confused, the way that boys are taught to be confused and a little disgusted by things that feel too soft. He had caught me doing the one thing that boys were not supposed to do. I wiped my face fast. No, I just got something in my eye. Classic. Truly one of humanity's greatest deflections. Something in my eye, in the storage closet, alone. Right. He didn't have to say much. His look was enough. And standing in that ballroom, I made a silent, unconscious vow to myself. I would never let myself be caught like that again. I would tighten up inside, stuff it down, close my heart. Whatever it took, I was not going to be caught in a vulnerable place ever again. And I got very good at it. Decades good. I did this for a long time. And while this was going on, I was paying a price I didn't even know I was paying. It wasn't until years later, after depression and addiction and a persistent numbness that followed me around like a shadow, moments of suicidal ideation came that I had no idea what to do with. I experienced a disconnection from myself and from any real sense of meaning or belonging. It wasn't until much later that I began to understand what actually happened in that ballroom. And it wasn't just on that day. It was over and over again across my childhood and early adolescence and into my adult years. I had learned to survive by not feeling, and not feeling what was happening inside of me was slowly killing me. The depression that I experienced wasn't a disease that came from nowhere. The lack of purpose in my life wasn't a character flaw. The disconnection from myself, from other people, from any sense of the sacred or alive, it could all be tracked back to one thing. I had been taught not to feel, so I stopped. And then I forgot how to do it in the first place. I'd been told a lie, and I believed it. Maybe some of this sounds familiar to you. And if it does, this video is speaking to you. You're not alone in this. This doesn't make you weak. This doesn't make you broken. And it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. What this means is that you're doing exactly as we as men have been taught to do. As a therapist, I have the unique experience of sitting across from a lot of men in a space where they feel safe, safe enough to share what's actually happening inside of them without the mask. And what I can tell you is most of the men that I work with, either one-on-one or in my men's group, are extraordinarily capable human beings. They show up, they provide, they handle things. Maybe they're the person that everybody leans on. And yet privately, sometimes so privately that they've never said it out loud to another person, They feel empty inside, or numb, or deeply alone, even when they're surrounded by people. Many of the men that I work with can't identify what's happening below their heads. They live entirely in their thoughts. And when I ask the classic therapist question, how does this make you feel? There's a pause. It's like a deer in the headlights look. Like I just ask them to solve a differential equation in Mandarin, and then they'll often say something like, I don't know. Or the classic move, I think I feel, followed by a thought and not a feeling. And just in some of my training, I've learned to recognize this. A man will say something like, I feel she doesn't respect me. And we have to dive into this by acknowledging that that's not a feeling. That's an opinion with the word feel in front of it. A feeling is, I feel hurt. I feel scared. I feel alone. Most men have never been given this vocabulary. Nobody has sat them down and said, this is what anger feels and looks like in your body. Here's how to tell the difference between sadness and guilt. Here's what fear is trying to tell you when it's showing up in your chest. And so many men just go through their lives accepting that numbness and exhaustion are just the way that things are supposed to be. This isn't a personal failure. This is something that has been bred into the ethos of our culture. Most men in our culture in childhood were handed something. A story, a set of rules, an invisible contract that shows them what it means to be a man. And many of us have never questioned this contract. We just absorbed it, the way that children absorb everything around them. The story becomes how we think, how we feel, what we allow ourselves to feel. And at the core of this was the lie that many of us were handed. The lie is that strength means not needing anything. That's it, distilled down to the core. As the story goes, a strong man doesn't feel afraid. He's never supposed to feel sad or lost or lonely or confused about who he is. And if he does feel those things, he certainly isn't supposed to say something. So he handles it by himself. He pushes through, he tries to figure it out alone. The image that many of us were handed as boys was that a man is supposed to be 100% self-sufficient, like an island, a rock, completely unmoved by anything, which sounds great on paper, but is absolutely exhausting in practicality. So where did this come from? It didn't come from nowhere. It was passed down. It came from fathers who learned it from their fathers, who learned it from theirs. And it got reinforced on every playground, every locker room, and in every moment that a boy was told to stop crying. Man up, don't cry, don't be a pussy, stop being so sensitive, toughen up. Don't let them see you this way. What's there to be upset about? You're fine. These phrases have become so common that we don't even know that we're hearing them sometimes. But what these are really saying is that your feelings are liability. Your sensitivity is weakness. The way to survive in this world is to disconnect from your feelings. And that's what we learned. We learned to swallow things, to muscle through, to perform whatever version of strength was required. To be strong for our partners, strong for our kids, strong for our parents, strong at work, strong in the world. And somewhere in all of that performing, we lost touch with ourselves. As one of the Jungian analysts, James Hollis, puts it, boys who needed to cry but couldn't, who needed to be held but were instead told to toughen up, they became the men who can't access themselves. And a man who can't access himself can't fully access anyone else. That's not a small thing. That's the whole shebang right there. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, has a concept that I like to draw on. He calls it the persona. The persona is the mask that we wear for the world, the face that we put on for public life. And Jung was very clear, the persona in itself isn't inherently bad. We need it. We all have one. It helps us to function. The problem occurs when a man identifies with his persona, when the mask has been on for so long that he forgot he was even wearing a mask. And that's what this lie does to us. It teaches a man to identify with the performance, believe that this wall is who they really are, that if they ever allowed themselves to feel something, grieve, to admit fear, to actually just say, I'm struggling, they would somehow cease to be a man. So the mask stays on. And over time, the distance between the man and the mask grows wider and wider and wider. Most men typically come into therapy because a relationship is falling apart, or because they are just feeling so dead inside and have been feeling so for so many years that they just can't ignore it anymore. Maybe they're acting out through addictions, through sex, alcohol, video games, drugs, pornography, and are finally in enough pain to ask for help. And as we begin to go deeper, when we actually begin to take a look at what's going on underneath the surface, there's almost always grief there. When we talk about grief, we don't necessarily mean a single traumatic loss, the way that it's looked at by our culture. It doesn't necessarily mean the death of a loved one or losing something significant, although it can. Grief is the feeling of loss. It can also be the loss of childhood innocence, the loss of a dream, the losses that just come from being human and experiencing this life. All of the moments of tenderness, of fear, of longing, of sadness, they typically got filed away because there wasn't room for them. There wasn't permission to express these. There wasn't a container safe enough to allow these to come out. Francis Weller, a psychotherapist who has written beautifully on the topic of grief, puts it this way: carried privately, sorrow lingers in the soul, slowly pulling us below the surface of life. And this is what I typically see, just a slow, quiet pull beneath the surface of life. One of my mentors, Dr. Robert Bly, has given me an image and a metaphor that has really worked well. He said that the river of grief and the river of joy flow in the same river. And when I shut myself off from grief, I also shut myself off from joy. As I began to sit with this quote, I started to see it everywhere. For instance, think of a man that you know, maybe it's yourself even. A man who seems sealed off, who doesn't cry at funerals, or maybe he didn't feel too much when, the dog died, or when his kids graduated, or when his father passed, or when he got fired from the job, and who describes his emotional life as fine, when what he really means is, I don't feel very much at all. This sealed off place was at one time protection. It made sense, it kept him safe and functional, and helped him to survive. But the thing about blocking off the river that nobody tells us is that we can't selectively block the river. When you dam grief, you also dam joy. When you stop feeling the difficult things, you also lose access to the more beautiful things as well. The transcendent moments, the fullness of love, the capacity to be moved by music or a landscape or the face of your child sleeping. You don't just numb the bad stuff, you get numb. Period. So let's talk about the cost, because the lie doesn't just affect the man who's wearing the mask. It radiates outward into every relationship that he has. Connor Beaton, who's the founder of Man Talks, once asked a question in a workshop that I attended. What if the problems in your life are the result of not learning to properly read the data of your emotions? He didn't necessarily say feel your emotions. He said learn to read them, like a dashboard, like an instrument panel. Think about physical pain for a moment. If you touch a hot stove, then your hand burns. The pain is not the enemy. The pain is data. It's saying, move your hand. Something is wrong here. Pay attention. A man who cannot feel the physical pain is not stronger than other men. He is in serious danger. He can't protect himself because he can't read what his body is telling him about the environment. When we suppress that data, we don't become stronger. We become blind. Imagine trying to fly a plane with half of the instruments covered. You can still grip the controls and man the cockpit. You can look very confident doing so. You can tell everyone on board, hey, things are totally fine. Got this all under control. But without the gauges or the speed or the altitude or even your direction, you're just guessing. And at some point, you're going to crash into the side of a mountain. And then we wonder why our relationships fail, why we feel empty at the center of our own success, why nothing seems to satisfy this hunger that we carry. The plane or the body was never the problem. We just never learned how to read the instruments. And another important topic to talk about here is loneliness. Many men today are experiencing loneliness. And I think this lie that we're talking about lies close to the center of that, because real friendship, the kind that can actually sustain a human being, requires vulnerability. It requires intimacy. Into me I see. The willingness to be known and not just liked or approved. It's the ability to say what's real for you, what's honest. I'm struggling, or I don't know, or I need something. Most men were never taught how to do that with each other. They were taught to do activities together, compete, to talk about everything except for what was happening inside. And then the activity ends or the team disbands, the job changes, life shifts, and then the friendships quietly dissolve because they were never built on something that actually can create a lasting relationship or a friendship. And then there's the numbing. Many men are caught in a cycle of anesthetizing, using addictions to cope with pain, the drinking a little bit too much, the working a little bit too much, disappearing into screens, food, pornography, crypto, anything that offers a few hours of not having to sit with the weight of carrying everything. I'm not saying this to shame anyone. I'm saying it from personal experience. I'm saying it because this lie creates a pressure system within us. Things can only be pushed down for so long until they erupt and they find a way out. And the way they find a way out is usually whatever can create the most immediate relief. The behavior of the addiction itself is not the problem. The behavior is the message. It's saying something needs to be felt that hasn't been felt yet. Modern trauma research, the work of Bessel van der Kolk, Peter Levine, and others, has shown that emotions don't disappear when we suppress them. They go somewhere. They move into the body. They calcify in the shoulders, compress in the chest. They grip the jaw. They seize in the gut. This is not some new age speculation. This is biology. This is the bill coming due for a lifetime of not being told that you can feel. Here's what I want to offer, not as a fix, but just as a different perspective. The lie many of us received as boys is that strong men don't feel. The truth is that it takes far more courage to face what is happening inside of us than to continue to run. Turning away from emotions is not strength. It's avoidance. Any man can numb out. Any man can stay busy. He can keep moving. That's the easy road. What's hard, what requires actual strength, is turning towards what's alive inside of you and being honest about what you find. Any man can shut down. Not every man can stay open. Robert Bly, whose work on masculinity and the modern mythopoetic movement that has shaped me deeply, talked about this work as a descending, going down into the darkness rather than performing in the light. He was very clear that this is not comfortable work. It asks something real of you. But there's a gift that comes back from going into the descent, the self-knowledge, the groundedness, the capacity for genuine connection. This cannot be faked or performed. It has to be earned. As James Hollis says, each of us carries a lake of tears and a mountain of anger. This is not your weakness. This is your depth. Depth is what matters most to the people in your life who actually care about you. Your partner, your children, friends who you haven't quite let inside yet. They don't need you to be a wall. They need you to be present, to be real, willing to be known. Something that I've learned about men, and this is one of my favorite things about this work, is that when given the proper space to express themselves, men are extremely intuitive and sensitive creatures. There is nothing more powerful or more quietly beautiful than watching a man take his armor off. Grief that moves through him is not breaking down. It is breaking open, and what pours out is not weakness or feminine or girly. It is everything that he was told to bury inside of him. His tenderness, his depth, his capacity to love and to be loved. This man, the one standing on the other side of having faced his own grief, is formidable in ways the armored version of himself never was. This is the kind of strength that actually can sustain a life. So I want to ask you a question, not to shame, but just to invite a moment of honesty from you. How much of your life has been spent running from what's inside of you? Maybe it hasn't been avoiding it dramatically or crumbling under it. Maybe it has. Where have you stayed busy and productive and stayed numb as a way to not feel what's going on inside? What if the exhaustion that you carry, the low-grade dissatisfaction, the sense that something is missing even when everything seems fine on paper? What if those things are not problems with your current circumstances? What if they are messages from a part of you that has been trying to get your attention for a very long time? If something in this video landed for you, if something shifted even slightly, I'd invite you to sit with it, even if it's uncomfortable. Don't analyze it, don't fix it, don't file it away for later. Just notice it in your body. Let it be here. Because this noticing, this small act of watching what's happening inside of us, this is where the work begins. We don't do this work in isolation. We heal together in community. I work with men one-on-one in therapy, in coaching, and I also facilitate online men's groups as well. This is a confidential space where men practice this exactly, putting the mask down in the company of other men. If any of this sounds like something that you're looking for, if you'd like to work together or participate in the men's group, go ahead and click the link down below and schedule a call with me. I'd love to connect. There is support if you need it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.